Hello, everyone. Thank you for attending my presentation today. My name is Mariah Pace Spencer, and I'm excited to present on teaching strategies for graduate students. I know that often graduate students find themselves teaching undergraduate courses, sometimes without formal training on how to actually teach. So today, I hope I can teach you a few strategies that can help engage students and increase higher level thinking in your classrooms. I am a graduate student in the Agricultural Extension and Education program with an emphasis in non-formal and community-based education. I also work as the Assistant Director of Recruitment Operations in the Admissions Office here at USU. This last spring, I took Advanced Teaching Strategies from Dr. Lacey Bichetto, and this presentation came from teaching strategies I learned in that course. The books we used for the course were The New Classroom Instruction That Works and 50 Strategies to Boost Cognitive Engagement. The content for my presentation came from these books. I will include a link to them at the end if you are interested in learning further, which I really recommend. I'm talking about 5 of the 60 plus strategies I learned from these books. During this presentation, I hope you will think of ways you can apply these general teaching strategies to your specific course content. By the end of our time together, I hope you'll be able to name a teaching strategy you learned today, develop a lesson introduction that uses one of the teaching strategies, and identify one project in your course content that could be modified into project-based learning. Like I said, through my teaching strategies course, I learned about over 60 individual teaching strategies. The 5 strategies I'm going to present on today are 10 most important words, matrix, visual thinking, anticipation guide, and inductive learning. These strategies were chosen because I thought they could be easily and effectively implemented into a college classroom, and they would be adaptable to the diverse content areas you each teach. 10 most important words help students identify and understand the key terms related to a topic. As a student, I know I would appreciate a clear list of words I needed to understand and to be successful and to be able to follow along in lectures. I know this slide is text heavy, but I wanted you to be able to take a screenshot so that you have step-by-step instructions about how to implement this in your classroom. I will have implementation instructions after every strategy slide. So for this to be teacher-driven, the teacher would choose the 10 most important vocabulary words and then have the students define those words and give an example of how they relate to the content at hand. In a student-driven scenario, you would give a student 10 sticky notes, then assign a reading, or whatever it may be, and have students choose 10 words that they see often and think are important. When finished, have the students announce their words. If other students chose the same words, have them stick them bar graph style on the wall. This will also give students the chance to visually see the number of times a word was selected. As a class, review and define the 10 words that were most common, or all the words, and any outliers. You could have 10 words for the day, or 10 words for a unit, or even the entire course. On the matrix, in the matrix, it introduces students to a variety of perspectives that are related to an interaction. So to demonstrate this strategy, I have created a matrix that's applicable to this group, using the variables, importance of students excelling in a content area, and importance of building a connection with students. Take a moment to think about where your personal point would go as a graduate teacher. On the matrix, a teacher will choose 2 variables and create a matrix. On their own paper, students will model the matrix and select their point of intersection with justification. Then students will add their mark to a class model. In partners, as a group, or in class conversations, students will discuss patterns, outliers, and surprising findings in the class matrix. As a student, I think it'd be interesting to see my classmates' perspectives and have a conversation about why they feel the way they do. Third, visual thinking encourages students to think about how a picture or video or graph can relate to course content. So, to implement this, you would show students an image that relates to the content area, whether that be a map, a picture, a graph, etc. Ask the students, what do you see? What's going on? What do you think? Open-ended questions promote higher thinking and create discussion. Encourage as many interpretations as possible. Then ask students questions to promote deeper thinking. What is the purpose? Can you compare two parts? What is the problem? Have a class discussion that connects their thinking to the content. Fourth, teachers can create anticipation guides for a lesson. For higher level thinking, students should not be able to answer the statements chosen based on facts. Rather, they would have to make inferences about what they have learned or will learn. Then a teacher introduces a topic for the lesson, and the student fills out the guide, marking each statement as true or false. So for example, in a psychology class where the lesson that day was on why people make the choices they do, a statement could be, students at USU that aren't involved by their own choice. And the student will mark that statement as true or false. Then a teacher would teach the lesson. And after the lesson, students would review their anticipation guide and make changes if they desired. They should record evidence from the lesson that supports their thinking and have the students discuss their guides in small groups. Using the anticipation guide will spark interest in lesson introductions, which will help students analyze the topic through cognitive interest. As a student, the anticipation guide would get me interested in the topic for the day, and I would be intrigued about what we would learn. Project-based learning helps students feel connected to their work because it has actual impact and value. Through PBL, students can understand the process of feedback and real-world projects. In a PBL, you introduce a problem or question, divide into teams and brainstorm ideas, ask questions and research answers, come up with a draft and present to peers, experts, or the community, collect feedback and edit as needed, repeat steps as needed, and then present the final product or project. A PBL could take days, weeks, or even months to finish, depending on the size and scope of the project. I was going to show you a short clip that explained a little bit more about project-based learning, but unfortunately, I realized after recording this presentation once that Zoom doesn't record screen audio. So after this presentation, please go to my slides and watch the video that's embedded there if project-based learning interests you. There's also a website at the bottom of this page that you can visit for more great resources. As a student, project-based learning would help me feel the work I was doing really mattered. And it would help me learn more about the critiquing and revision process, which is a process that students will likely encounter in their eventual careers. As an example of this, I am not a teacher, but I do oversee a group of our student ambassadors. And we host an event every year called Leadership Day that has not been well attended in the past. So to introduce the problem, I told my students that I wanted them to redesign a leadership day that would be applicable to high school students and that would make them want to come to campus. And then they divided into teams, different committees, a committee for workshops, a committee for marketing, a committee for food, and they brainstormed ideas. I had them ask real questions to each other and to research. And they also dove into past data and past historical ideas. They came up with a draft, and then I had them present to other ambassadors and those in our office that work with high schoolers. They collected feedback and edited as needed. And then their final product was Leadership Day. And this took course over a semester of taking their idea and revising their idea. And it was a real project that was actually implemented. To review, I've covered 5 teaching strategies today. Please pause this slide if you need to reflect on what you've learned and how these strategies could be implemented in your classroom. In conclusion, implementing these simple teaching strategies can help students think critically about course content, engage students in lessons in a new way, and provide real-world experience with class projects. If you are interested in learning more, please feel free to scan these QR codes to be taken to the Amazon links for both these textbooks. Thank you for watching this session today. If you have any questions or comments, please email me at mariah.spencer@usu.edu. Thanks again, and have a great day.